From KPBS and PRX, this is Port of Entry, where we tell cross-border stories that connect us. I'm Alan Lilienthal.
And I'm Natalie Gonzalez.
That's right, compas. We have a new co-host.
Woohoo! Yeah, Natalie.
Welcome to the show, Natalie.
Hey, yes, hello. Yo soy Natalie Gonzalez, your new co-host for Port of Entry. And I am really, really excited to be here and tell you stories about my home, the border.
And I'm super excited to have you. You know, as much as I love Tijuana with all my heart, it's nice to have someone who was born there and who's really seen the evolution of Tijuana throughout their whole lives. So today in Port of Entry, we've got a tour guide bonus episode for you. It's where we ask people who live on both sides of the border to take us on a little tour of an actual place in the borderlands that means a lot to them. And this tour guide episode is extra special because Natalie is going to be our guide and take us somewhere very important to her.
So this is I love this place, and
Yeah,
even
it's
the
so
smell,
cool.
even the
See,
smell.
no, it's like it.
You can see that.
You can tell that magic has been made in
Right? Right. But also, we thought that while Alan was using an episode to introduce me, we would go ahead and reintroduce you to Alan too. Oh wow, this place is amazing.
Yeah, it's cool, right?
So we're gonna give you a chance to finally learn a lot more about this beautiful voice who's been guiding you through these border stories for the past years.
We'll dive into both of our stories right after a quick break.
Quédate con nosotros. Beautiful voice. Precious.
That's very nice. What a nice way to start my day.
KPBS On Demand is supported by Illumina, a global leader in DNA sequencing, helping clinicians and researchers all over the world understand the genetics of disease to make personalized medicine a reality. From genetic testing to developing new vaccines to help protect people around the globe, Illumina DNA sequencing is impacting the future of healthcare. Discover more about the power of the genome by visiting illumina.com/KPBS.
Okay, ready. Estamos de regreso en el podcast.
¿Qué onda?
How are you?
Estoy un poco sudado, acabo de gimnasio. So, I recently met up with Natalie at a small performance venue in downtown Tijuana. Cool. Where are we in Tijuana?
Estamos, ¿cómo te explico eso? Estamos enfrente de La Cacho. La Cacho está justamente cruzando este boulevard. So this is the boulevard, one of the most famous boulevards in Tijuana. And if we cross that boulevard, that's La Cacho. So that we could say that we're in downtown Tijuana?
Yeah.
Because downtown is just here,
Sí.
like 2 blocks away.
The theater is called Teatro Las Tablas, and it's run by a local company called Tijuana Hace Teatro. It's dark in here.
It is dark. You're gonna love
Moody,
it. You're
moody.
gonna love it. I feel
Okay.
it's definitely your style of
Okay.
place. The kind of place that you will love here, Tijuana.
¿Cuánto tiempo?
Okay, so Alan, this place is really important for me. It means a lot. It is really, really deep in my heart.
Why?
Because I think in this place is where I realized that theater is the one thing that I want to do for the rest of my life. Like for the rest of my life, I want to say something to someone with art, and I want to make people laugh, and I just want to talk about what I care with art. And I could have chosen like a lot of places in Tijuana porque I grew up here. Pero I think that this is the one that is closer to who I am right now and closer to what I believe right now, you know? So that's why I chose this place.
So, the theater Natalie wanted to show me is really very small.
Yeah, if it's just 40 people. But its smallness is a big part of what I really love about it.
Wow.
This is great, right?
This is super cool. So here's where the actors are, and like the audience would be up there.
The audience up there and also here.
It's so intimate.
Like, it is so intimate. That's the thing I love about this place, that it is really intimate. And actually, either whether you're sitting over there as the member of the audience or you're standing here as an actor, it's really intimate experience.
So, Natalie, you actually have a vivid memory that illustrates that intimacy really well. You were in the audience one night watching a play instead of acting in it, right?
Yeah, that's right. And I was so close to the actors on the stage that the scene really hit me hard. Justo mi corazón.
Ay.
The actress was looking me in the eye while she was saying the words, and I was crying while she was looking at me in the eyes. And it was super intimate, and I have that image in my mind. So
she
close
that
to
must
my
have
heart.
been amazing as an actress, like to be.
Yeah, I'm sure she was like, I made someone cry.
Yeah, that's incredible.
And I was sharing a tear while she was saying her lines, and that was beautiful.
Okay, Natalie, so that was a little bit about who you are now.
Yeah.
But I also want to understand how exactly you got to this place in your life where theater is your thing and the thing you love most.
Yes, okay.
So after the tour of the theater, we sat down to talk.
We did. And we had a great time, actually.
Can you tell me about some of your early memories growing up in Tijuana, like some memories that stick out of running around in some of your grandpa's markets in downtown?
I have a really big family. My dad, he has a bunch of siblings, and they all share this business. So I would be just running around with all of my cousins all around this market. So it's two markets, Mercado Hidalgo and Mercado de Abastos. So we would get a lot of free food, a lot of free cheese, a lot of candy, a lot of just watermelon. We were always eating oranges all around, just walking around playing hide and seek while eating fruits and vegetables. I think that is something like really Mexican, like a really Mexican way to grow up, just to be, walking around the mercados, and they're also called street markets or los sobre ruedas. And I had a really beautiful childhood with all of my cousins who are like my siblings, and with all of my siblings. There's this place called Brenda's where you can just buy candy or oatmeal and a lot of things. And I would always not steal, because it's my family's business, but I would just walk around and just like open this little box and grab a bunch of candies and then just run.
Sounds like a dream when you're a kid, just to go around picking whatever fruit and candy you want from the market. Sounds incredible.
It was a dream. It was really beautiful. And it was really colorful, super colorful. I remember because there were a lot of piñatas all around the place. So whenever I think about those memories, it's always colorful. I'm always thinking about colors, fruits, vegetables, candy, piñatas. So it's beautiful to remember all of that. I don't go there anymore. And it hurts sometimes because whenever I'm there, it feels like home.
Do you remember some of the first times you crossed the border?
Of the memories that had a lot of impact, I remember we crossed the border because we wanted to buy some toys, because one of my cousins, he was going to have a birthday party. And I remember coming back, my dad received a phone call from my uncle, and he was like, you know what? Someone broke into your house and everything is destroyed. And my dad didn't say anything. I just remember he was super, super scared. And when we were driving en la Vía Rápida, the Mexican freeway, you could say it's a freeway, we saw our dogs. They were standing in the freeway. And I remember thinking, what the heck? What are they doing there? Like, my dogs, why are they standing there in the freeway? I remember thinking, like, maybe they were waiting for us. Like, I was like, what were they doing? Like, why aren't they home? And so what happened is that my dogs, they tried to follow the robbers. So they ended up in the freeway. And I remember so clearly, we were coming back from San Diego from Target just to buy toys. And then I found my dogs in the street. And then my house was completely, everything was, I never saw my house because my dad, he wouldn't allow us to go inside because apparently everything was just todo estaba volteado, todo estaba destrozado. O sea, rompieron cosas, se llevaron 1000 cosas, voltearon las camas, fue horrible. I never saw that because my dad no nos dejó. But I remember that seeing, like, coming from San Diego, de tener un día muy bonito y hermoso, and then llegar a mi casa and everything was completely destroyed. And thankfully, my dogs were okay. They were fine, and I always remember them because obviously they passed away because this was like more than 15 years ago. But I remember, like, damn, my dogs, they were true Mexican dogs, like trying to get the robbers.
So there's this other story you told me about. It's about the moment your family got green cards.
This is a moment that lives in my memory. We were all opening our envelopes with our cards, and she was like, I didn't get one. And my mom was like, what do you mean you didn't get one? We all got ours. She was like, no, I didn't get mine. And I just remember she started crying, and my uncle was like, it's okay. This can be your home until you get your green card. It's okay. Don't worry. You're going to be fine. And she was like, but I need to go back to my school, and I need to finish high school and graduate. And she was like, and my family's going back, and I'm going to stay here by myself. And that moment is like in my mind. I can remember the color of the walls around me. I can remember my sister standing in the hallway crying and hugging my uncle, and just me thinking, so does that mean that I'm gonna go back to my room and sleep by myself? Because I sleep with my sister, and does that mean now I'm gonna sleep by myself? That's a really hard memory, but it's also, I don't know, I think it's really important because I think that was the first time that I realized I was living in Tijuana, in a border town, and that had a lot of weight.
Yeah, it was like before you didn't realize the implications of like cross, because it was just easy.
Until that precise moment. But it was hard because I was so used. My sister, she's my best friend, so I was so used to do everything with her because it's my 2 brothers and then me and my sister. So it was always me and her, and then she was not there anymore. So it was pretty tough at first, but I mean, you get used to that. You get used to the tough life.
So not long after that moment, when your sister had to stay in the U.S. to finish school, the rest of your family had their green cards, so they started to live more of a cross-border life, right?
Yeah, exactly. So my parents, they both got jobs in San Diego, and my sister and one of my brothers, they started studying in San Diego too.
How did that change from being mostly in Tijuana to being cross-border? How did that change you?
I think that hit me a lot, that out of nowhere, my family was in another country. And it was just my oldest brother and me at home. That hit me a lot because I grew up super close with my siblings. We were always together. We would always do everything together. So I think that's a really relevant part of being transfronterizo, of being fronterizo to me, that, well, your family, sometimes you get separated from them.
How did you cope with that separation?
TV. Lots of TV, a lot of Disney Channel shows. So basically, television was my babysitter, pretty much.
Wow, is that how you learned how to speak English?
Yeah, totally. And it's also how I first got interested in acting, too.
So TV can be good for you sometimes.
Sometimes. When I was 8 years old or 9 years old, I somehow, because of all of these shows from Disney Channel and Nickelodeon, I developed like an obsession with becoming an actress and play a character on TV.
And how long did it take you to start really pursuing it? I mean, I know in elementary school, you joined the drama club, right? Is that really the first time you were like, you took those dreams and gave them some reality?
Yeah. So I mean, it's been a ride, of course. Now I don't want to be on TV. I don't want to make movies or anything. And I think it's because I fell in love with theater, and I realized that theater is way more real than anything in the world. I'm not doing this for fun anymore. I mean, I am, but I think this is what I want forever. Like, I always want to share with people forever. It's beautiful.
So can I go back a little bit? Like, I know at the time that you started spending a lot of time alone and started falling asleep with TV and acting and playing characters, you said that you also is when you started becoming aware of your anxiety and insecurity and stuff like that. Can you talk a little bit about maybe where those fears came from? Was it just being alone, and was playing characters like the way to kind of escape that?
I think I was never aware of my anxiety, of course, because I've never heard the word anxiety when I was a kid or when I was a teenager. So I think for me, I was a really insecure kid. I would always be scared of something. There was always something going on in my head that I was scared of, whether going to sleep by myself or even just going to sleep because I would have nightmares, or just learning how to swim. There was always a fear that I would have, and I think that was obviously anxiety. And so something that I wasn't aware of back then, like, I was so insecure and so fearful, but somehow I wasn't scared to do theater. And it was like a therapy session for me. It's not anymore, of course. Now I go to real therapy, but...
So, Natalie, just like your relationship to theater has changed over the years, your relationship with the city of Tijuana has also evolved too.
Yes, it has evolved a lot, actually.
Yeah, because when you were growing up, Tijuana was a completely different place. It was suffering from a huge spike in cartel violence. There were shootings out in the open, and people were getting kidnapped.
Yes, and actually, yeah, that was horrible. I knew a lot of people who were impacted by this and during the worst of it. And I basically became a homebody and missed a lot of my friends' parties and quinceañeras because it just seemed too dangerous and risky to go out during that time.
Yeah, I bet. I can't imagine.
And actually, my best friend's dad got kidnapped. And
wow.
Yeah, I mean, eventually he got home safely, thankfully, but that was still very, very scary.
Yeah, that sounds terrifying. So it was experiences like that, I imagine, that made you sort of start not liking Tijuana for a while.
If I remember how I pictured Tijuana back then, I would use the word gray. Like, I would say like a gray color. That's gray, or something like brown. That's how I remember it. Like a lot of just everything gray. Because there was nothing going on. And also because I would always stay home and I didn't even know my city. But for me, it was a place where there were no opportunities. That's why I wanted to move to the States. There were no opportunities to grow here. There was no point on staying here to study because I was going to graduate and do what? And so I don't know, I think And I don't feel bad about this because I think it was a process, but I really thought Tijuana was a horrible place. It was my home. It really felt like my home because I knew the place and I was used to the place. But I hated it. It was just gray. It had no color for me.
Yeah, that's really interesting how when you were telling me about your youth in Tijuana, you remember all these colors from the mercados, the piñatas, las frutas. And then as you got older, the color of the city kind of faded for you. Nowadays, though, you said the color and brightness of Tijuana has finally returned for you. So how did that transformation happen?
So my university, it's a Jesuit university. So they would would teach us a lot about human rights, a lot. So all of my classes, they were always focused on human rights. Film, radio, everything was always about human rights. So I started researching because my major was really focused on research. So I started researching about social issues in Tijuana, and it's going to sound weird if I use these words, but this is what happened. I fell in love with the human trafficking and sex trafficking topic because I thought it was like super, super big and super intense. And I was like, man, this is going on a lot in Tijuana. And what are we doing about it? Is there like a shelter, or what happens to these people that get rescued? Like, do they get rehab? Like, they need to get some sort of rehab, right? So I just started researching a lot. And I ended up at this place called Red Binacional de Corazones. And it's a shelter for kids who were victims of sex trafficking or just human trafficking in general. They get rehab. They get art classes, music, dance, everything that they need. They go to swimming lessons. They do everything that they need to get better for when they go back to society. And I met a lot of people who were doing art with a social cause. And I realized, damn, Tijuana is pretty cool because, I mean, there are a lot of issues, but there's also a lot of people, a lot of artists doing a bunch of cool things to improve the city. So I think that was probably, I can't remember the year, but I was probably like 21, 22 years old when I realized that there were a lot of creative spaces in this city with a lot of social cause, with a lot of impact in our society. And there were a bunch of coffee shops doing every Sunday just things to raise money for some cause, and just a bunch of small theater places doing stuff, and people dancing to talk about social issues. And I just started to fall in love with Tijuana.
Okay, so back inside that theater you love in downtown Tijuana, you told me about how proud you are of the city now.
I am very proud of my city. I love Tijuana, honestly.
Yeah, especially, you said, when it comes to this tight-knit theater community.
I think it's really strong. Even with the pandemic, I think it's been pretty strong because they haven't stopped. Like, they haven't stopped doing, and when I say they, I mean all the companies. All the companies here in Tijuana.
But I'm guessing that at some point you want to leave Tijuana and do the whole theater actor dream, maybe go to New York and do Broadway?
Yeah, that would be great. But you know what? Like, even if that happens and I run off to New York for a while, eventually I will come home.
I always want to come back because there's a lot of talent here in Tijuana, and there's a big opportunity to make it grow. Like, all the theater scene in Tijuana, we need to make it grow. And if I just leave to become like a bigger actress, well, this is the place that made me an actress. So I need to always come back here. And I mean, I wouldn't mind just staying here forever and do theater here because I think it's a perfect place to make theater here. I would love to try Broadway because I love musicals. I'm obsessed with musicals. You have no idea. Obsessed. But I always want to come back here. I always want to do everything here. And sure, why not tour a little bit? But like, my goal is to make it grow here.
Yeah.
So yeah, you just heard about my nerdy obsession for arts and theater. But now it's Alan's turn.
God, finally. I'm used to it being only about me.
Diva.
You can't see it right now, but at night, the border is like right there, and it's really bright and lit up. And if you didn't know it was a militarized border, you'd be like, oh, that's really pretty. There's some nice lights. Beautiful.
That's coming up soon.
But first, a quick break.
No se vayan, no muevan sus nalguitas.
The wait is over. KPBS and our community partners are excited to announce the 2021 One Book, One San Diego selections. For our youngest readers, a picture book called All the Way to the Top. For tweens and teens, we've got When Stars Are Scattered. And for adults, Being Human. To learn more about these titles and upcoming One Book events, visit kpbs.org/onebook.
Y ya estamos de regreso.
Yes. Entonces, before we get to your special place at the border, Alan, I want to go back in time, like way, way, way back in time to even before you were born.
Okay.
Which was like ages ago. Because your family has a pretty interesting origin story.
Well, my great-grandparents, it was actually some of my great-grandparents, some of my great-great-grandparents were from Eastern Europe, and it was not a nice situation for Jewish people, to say the least, in that area of the world in those days. They were, I guess, some of the smart ones who had the foresight to see what was happening. This was way before Nazi Germany. So I guess they were hip to what was happening, and they were like, we gotta get the F out of here. In the early 1900s, there was the pogroms. The pogroms were happening in like Russia and the Ukraine area. And Jewish people had to either flee or have a very, very, very difficult life. So my great-grandparents and great-great-grandparents left. Some of them were trying to actually come to America, but again, Ellis Island was pretty packed, long lines. So the next best thing was Mexico. Some of them had like some kind of connection, like an uncle or something who had passed through Mexico, and yeah, they ended up in Mexico, which I'm super grateful for, to be honest. Not only to Mexico for welcoming them with open arms, but being Mexican is one of my favorite things in the whole world.
Obviously, because it's wonderful.
It's great food. Yeah, it's an amazing culture to be a part of.
So fast forward to your mom and your dad meeting and falling in love and having 3 beautiful boys. And you're the first one. You're the oldest one. So what do you remember about your childhood in Mexico City?
I only have a few memories, but the ones that I do, I remember a lot of. Mexico is very big on family. As I'm sure you know, Mexico is family such a just bedstone of everything we do. Yeah. So I remember most of my memories from Mexico are really spent with family. Like every Saturday, I would go to Sanborns, which there's one in Tijuana.
Oh my God.
Yeah, with my grandpa. I was the first one. I was the first one, so it was only me and my grandpa in the beginning. But eventually, like every time there was a new grandchild on the block, they would join the party. By the time I left Mexico City, I think it was 3 of us, me, my brother Ita, and my cousin Ariela. And I have very beautiful memories, to be honest, of Mexico. I remember really loving, this is not Mexican at all, but I remember like there was this, I've never seen this in America, but in the Mexico Kentucky Fried Chicken, KFC, they had this like gravy mashed potato thing that was kind of like Mexican. Oh my God, it was the best. My mom would take me when I was like, as like a treat every once in a while. So most of my memories in Mexico are around just food and being around family a lot.
So what was it like as an 8-year-old walking into a classroom in the U.S. for the first time? You didn't speak any English yet, right?
Yeah, no, I didn't speak any English when I moved here. I knew maybe how to say my name and how to, like, where's the bathroom? But no, I didn't speak any English. I think it was similar to your experience of being aware of the border. I think the thing that strikes me most about moving to the US, it was the first time where I felt conscious of being separate from my environment, where I was like, oh, I am Alan, and this thing, this place I'm in is different from what I am. Whereas maybe before that, I don't know, you're just a kid and you kind of, it all just blends together. You're not really conscious of like, what life is or who you are. But I think walking into that classroom in the first few weeks, I was so aware of how of like me being separate from my environment and not speaking the language. And it was very maybe it's because I'm super sensitive. I guess some kids like adjust better, but it really like created some kind of schism. Like I really see that as the birth of me being anxious or getting like overthinking what people around me are saying or like looking at me in weird ways. I think it stems from those days because it felt very alienating. And it doesn't seem like that big of a deal. Now it's like, oh, dude, you were 8 years old. You just moved from Mexico to the U.S. It's not a big deal. You were safe. You were in a good school. It's fine. But no, it was very disorienting.
It was a big deal.
It was very disorienting for years. I'm still to this day, I'm still kind of unraveling the anxiety that created.
Here's where we have some similarities. Actually, I think we have a lot of similarities. You two have battled with anxiety that started with that experience of feeling like an alien, like you said, an outsider, or feeling like you didn't fit in when you came to the U.S. So how did you deal with that anxiety when you were young?
Honestly, music saved my life, really, I think. I don't think I know. A few weeks after we moved to San Diego from Mexico, a music teacher, I remember, came into our classroom and she started singing these songs that were exactly the same ones that we sang in Mexico. They were Hebrew songs because I went to a Jewish school. And like something subconsciously clicked where music felt like the way, like the tool to feel belonging and to feel like it was the first time where like me and my classmates were all singing the same songs, and it was like, oh, we're not that different. Oh, we actually can relate to each other. It felt like I felt a connection with them that I hadn't felt before. So music became the thing. I remember in those days, like I started having like when you were watching TV, like I started having fantasies and visions of like being on stage and playing music for my classmates in Mexico City, like going back to my friends and playing music for them. It just is the only thing that felt like home to me. It felt like without, like, because I was so young and I didn't know how to use language, like, and music came down and like made me feel belonging. I think my subconscious latched onto that and felt like music was the only way to feel that. That was both like medicine to me and also became kind of a crutch, where I started using music almost as an escape, like, because whenever I would feel anxious, instead of facing the anxiety or dealing with it, I would just retreat into music and be like, oh no, this is what I'm going to do. I'm just going to become really good at music and not, I mean, I wasn't thinking like I'm not going to deal with this, but that's what I was doing. So yeah, it took me a while to heal that so that I could come to music from a healthy place.
You ended up taking a Greyhound bus from San Diego to New York, and you went to college there. But music was still your main thing. Can you tell me about the label you started and what sort of things you did in the music scene in Brooklyn? That's pretty cool.
So I moved to New York because my intentions and my dream of music was always very pure, and it always has been, because music helped me so much early on feel belonging and feel like I had a place in this world, that I always felt like I wanted to pass that on to other people and help other people, other artists, not only myself, but I wanted to help other artists have a platform in order to share that sense of belonging with people. So that was always my dream and my vision for my life. So moving to New York was kind of a way to start watering that. So when I moved to New York, my brother was living here, and we started this kind of record label, art collective experiment, social experiment, where we wanted to start a label where it wasn't about just the individual artist's ego. It was more about this community affair where we would, like, different artists would play on each other's records, and then, like, it would also be visual artists and filmmakers, and it wasn't just about music, and we would all collaborate with one another. It would be like a big commune type thing, but within the model of a record label. was an amazing time. I learned a ton about how to do that. We were throwing shows every weekend that were getting, for a year or two, packed and sold out every week. I started.
Nice.
Part of that was I was spray painting funny, like almost like tweets before Twitter, like on the street, announcing these events. That's actually why I don't have my Sentry, because the reason I don't have my Sentry is because in those days I was spray painting a lot to promote these shows, and I got arrested a couple times.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so I'm still don't have my Sentry. That was almost 10 years ago. But I learned a lot about how to create community and the importance of community, because I think in music it can be very easy, again, to think that it's about your ego and like people thinking you're awesome. And I've thankfully remembered and realized that music is about the connection between us. Like music has been at the core of human communication since the beginning of time, and around the fire, in religions, in religious services, and everything. Music has this glueness to it that brings people together. And I think that those times in New York, in those early times, really reminded me of that it was about this community enrichment. It wasn't just about the individual artists.
And that brings us to your tour guide portion of the show, Alan.
All right, mi turno. Vamos para afuera, te enseño dónde meditaba cada mañana.
Oh, wow.
So I took us to a little house on a hillside in Tijuana that overlooks downtown.
And it's an epic view that stretches all the way to San Diego.
Every morning I would come here to this ledge to meditate and think about Tijuana. I never get tired of thinking about Tijuana.
What I think it's really curious is that you never lived here, and out of nowhere you were just like, I'm gonna move to Tijuana. What happened there? How did that happen in your head? Like, I'm just gonna move to Tijuana. Like, I've never been there, but I'll just do it.
Well, I had been here.
Oh yes, when you were a kid.
But I didn't know. But you're right. Like I can't even say that like I knew Tijuana, because it was like pretty much straight to the airport to go to La Ciudad de Mexico to visit my grandparents. It wasn't like I knew Tijuana in any way. I had, like I can remember maybe once or twice as a kid going to like Tepos Nieves or Mundo Divertido. Like that's all I knew of Tijuana. So yeah, that it was a weird like it shocked my parents when I decided to move to Tijuana, because like classic like immigrant story, like my dad worked so hard to leave Mexico to bring his kids to the States to like, give him better opportunity, and then his kid's like, I'm going to Tijuana, and he's like, what the are you doing? I love this story, and it's also a strange one to tell for people who don't who believe in God or like the forces of the universe, because I really say this with my whole heart. I can't even say that I decided to move to Tijuana. I kind of just like listened and I said, okay, yes, because I was in a very dark place in my life and very lost. When I was like 25, 26. Before that, I always kind of could see where I wanted my future to go. It kind of made sense. But in that moment, everything was like I had no idea where I was going. I had just broken up with an ex-girlfriend of a very long time, that we had been dating for a very long time. Music had lost its like juice for me. Like it just, I still loved music, but it was like, it felt like a traumatic relationship where like I needed it to feel of value. Like I needed music to feel like I had anything to offer, and that wasn't healthy, because then when I didn't have a guitar in my hand, like who the was I didn't know.
Oh wow.
It got dark. But
and it was all about you. Like it wasn't about music, it was all about you.
Yeah.
Like a process that you were living.
100%.
You had to find yourself.
100%. Yeah. It's like a codependent relationship with anyone, like with a human. Like you have to find that stability and love within yourself to then enjoy the relationship.
Yes.
That's how it was with music. I was like using it to feel good. So I had to figure some shit out. So the only thing that made sense to me, since I couldn't see the future, was to go into my roots. So I've always felt a deep sense of, gratitude and wanting to give back to Mexico, because without, I feel super Mexicano, but
You're super Mexican.
Yeah. Me siento super Mexicano, but I also am aware of the history of how I even got to be Mexican, and it's wow, okay, I feel a sense of responsibility. But that's not the point. So I was lost, and I left to Europe, to Eastern Europe. My only idea was to start in London and hitchhike all the way to Eastern Europe to see if maybe that process would teach me something about who I was and what I wanted to do. I had no idea where I was. I didn't know if I was going to come back to America. I didn't know if I was going to move to. I didn't know what was next. And during that time, the Syrian refugee crisis happened. So I was in Europe, hitchhiking and sleeping in train stations while there was thousands and thousands of Syrian refugees coming to Europe. And it was this weird cosmic thing, because it was I was there to get to know the lands of my great-grandparents who left Europe to Mexico, because they were being persecuted. And now there was thousands of Muslims coming, they were both religious, Christians and Muslims, coming to Europe, not being accepted, being turned away as refugees. And I was there, the only thing that felt right to do was to volunteer at refugee camps and help these people, just my family was helped at some point in Mexico. So it was this strange thing of it really connected me to who belongs in what land, what belongs to who. If you're fleeing persecution, we're all just humans, right? And it reminded me why I even made music in the first place, which is music helped me find a sense of belonging and of harmonizing with the people around me. So it was this wild thing. And during those times, I don't remember if it was one moment or what exactly happened, but during this time of being deep with the Syrian refugees and contemplating how I got to Mexico and my role in the world, this light bulb was in my head. It was you gotta go to Tijuana.
And you told me something really interesting about how you felt when you moved here. You said that the minute you moved here, you just knew Tijuana was exactly where you belong.
I mean, in general, Tijuana is the first time in my life where I've really felt at home, where I didn't question, is this where I'm supposed to live? We have so many options now at our I think the internet opened us up to the idea. Before, you had to stay where you lived. That was the only thing you knew, your parents knew. Now you see everything on Instagram. And I think as someone who, I was born in Mexico City, grew up in San Diego, kind of, in Mexico, no one believes me that I'm Mexican. In America, no one believes me that I'm Mexican.
Yes. You feel like you don't belong?
So, yeah, to a degree.
You're not from here and you're not from there.
Exactly, lo clásico que dicen la gente aquí, ni de aquí ni de allá. That was me to my core. And Tijuana feels like home. Everyone feels that here. It's lo de ni de aquí ni de allá, it's okay, but here is that makes you at home here. It's this weird place where the border creates this kind of borderless culture, where people from all over the world come here, either seeking a better life in America or just stay in Tijuana because there's a lot of opportunity here. The energy here, the spirit of the people here is very welcoming to people who feel like they don't belong anywhere else. So yeah, I have a lot of love for Tijuana, and this place that we're in right now, La Casa del Chucas, is the first place I moved to when I decided to move to Tijuana. So it'll always hold a special place in my heart. And like right here, what we're looking at right now, this view, it's not a glamorous view. It's not typically pretty, but I think that's what makes it so intriguing to me. At night, that's the border right there. You see it in la noche, all those lights are lit up. So it's this. There's a lot to think about here. It's especially if you have any kind of privilege and you can cross the border, and you're looking down on this cerro where there's trash on the hills, and there's these houses built out of it seems whatever you could, like, you know, wood pallets or whatever it is next to nice houses, it's like this crazy contrast. And San Diego's right over there, and it's like a completely different looking, the same land looks totally different in the way it's developed. So there's like, you know, like sitting up here gives me a lot to think about of how I want to contribute and how I want to, you know, contribute my creativity and my energy to the city and to the world, you know, like all the forces of all the forces that we, it seems that we're like trying to figure out as humans, like immigration and climate change, it seems like they come to a head here.
So this is why I know we will get along. Eres mi hermano, ya, básicamente.
Compas for life.
I love doing theater to talk about some of these difficult issues and to build a community.
And I love making music for pretty much the exact same reasons.
Exactly. And this brings us to your binational band.
Tu lengua.
Métele funk, baby.
I formed Tu Lengua because, again, I think music is dissolves the barriers between us. When you're at a show with 1,000 people or 10 people singing a song, there's this feeling of communion that's unlike anything that I've ever felt. I think that's why music is used in spiritual ceremonies of all kinds. So music to me is the best tool in dissolving the borders between us, you could say. So Tu Lengua was born out of this. I think around the time Trump was elected and there was all this shit being talked about, you know, the division at the border and more wanting to build a stronger wall and a bigger wall and militarization and it was all these people talking about the border in like Washington D.C. or like people that had no idea what it was actually like to live here and not only to live here but didn't even know the fluidity that already exists here, like the vast amount of collaboration and cooperation and things that happen in the border region. The conversation was so removed from the actual lived experience of the border region and people who live crossing this border every single day that it felt to me, I don't know, it just happened very naturally. Like I wanted to create a band that could represent that unity that I already knew existed in both sides of the border.
That's it. That's us.
Thank you so much. Gracias for taking the time to listen and to get to know us.
Muchísimas gracias. And by the way, esa canción chingona that you're hearing right now, it's a song by Alan called Julio 22. Enjoy.
Disfruten.
Adiós. Qué buena rola, carnal.
Un vestido se deslizó, luna llena que me encantó. Tú eres templo en mis sueños, yo el buen soñador.
Port of Entry is written and produced by Kinsee Morlan.
Emily Jankowski is the co-producer and director of sound design.
Alisa Barba is our editor.
Lisa Morrisette is operations manager.
And John Decker is the interim associate general manager of content.
This program is made possible in part by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people. I'm Alan Lilienthal.
And I'm Natalie Gonzalez. Muchas gracias por escucharnos.
Thank you.
No fue desvío si aquí llegó, si el destino nos escogió, aunque no sepa verlo, todo esconde el amor.